I think this is just like one of the scripture verses that really gets me excited, because it's one of those scripture verses where we are reminded of Jesus walking with us through the frustration, through the desolation. Two things I want to point out. One is that the apostles did not recognize Jesus. I mean, even it's not only these two people who had walked away that didn't recognize the risen Christ, but just think about it. I don't know if you ever thought about it. It was even Mary Magdalene at the tomb, who knew Jesus so well. She too didn't recognize Jesus. She thought he was the gardener. What's going on? How are they not recognizing Jesus? Well, most theologians will tell you it is because Jesus was no longer in his human body as we know it, but he was in a glorified body. And we know this because he walked through walls, he appeared to the apostles, he opened the tomb, he got through the cloth as well, his body went through the cloth. So there were some special properties that this body had, but also it must have looked different as well. And so this got me thinking, as I was preparing for this. That's number one. The second thing is that the apostles were walking away. They were disillusioned. They were frustrated. They couldn't believe, like, God, where are you in all of this? I've had enough of this. And so they walk away from Jerusalem to Emmaus. And they're going to this place where they just want to be away from it all. I've had enough. I've had enough. And this human element of frustration, this is where Jesus, the glorious Jesus, meets them. How familiar this is, at least for me. I'm frustrated. I want to go out. I'm stuck in my room. I'm stuck in my house. I cannot go out. I'm frustrated at all the sickness and the pain and the horrible news of people suffering, the things that are happening in the United States, in Europe. People are dying and suffering. I'm frustrated. I'm anxious. God, where are you in all of this? I don't recognize Jesus, you see. I don't know. I cannot see sometimes where Jesus is. But this scripture reminds me that he is there. He's there. He's chasing after these apostles who walked away. And sometimes this is where we find ourselves at home, frustrated, lost, away from the Eucharist, away from our routine of prayer, away from the things that we know and are so familiar about with God. And some of us have strayed away from prayer. We've strayed away in some of our relationships. But you think God is going to be disappointed in you? Do you think he's ashamed of you? Do you think he's upset with you? Do you think he's angry with you? No. No. It is at this point that Jesus chased after the apostles. He sat with them. He talked with them. He broke bread with them. But let's go back to the not recognizing him. They didn't recognize him because they didn't know what he looked like. They didn't recognize him because he was in a new state, in a new place. You see, this is the same thing with us. We're in a new state, we're in a new place. We're not before the Blessed Sacrament. The Blessed Sacrament, the source and summit of our faith, the true presence of Jesus. We miss that, we long for that, we thirst for that, but we cannot be there right now. But he's still here. He's still there with you. He's still chasing after you. Open your eyes. Recognize that his Spirit is there with you. His glorified presence there with you. Now it's good to long for the Eucharist. It's so important to do that. But that is no excuse not to pray. That is no excuse not to be with God, to spend time with God, not to enjoy the presence of God who is chasing after us. Open your eyes. God is there. He's walking with us. But the thing is, once we recognize him, man, it changes everything. This is what the apostles did. They recognized him through the breaking of bread, and then they ran back, not walked back, they ran back to Jerusalem. And how we look forward to running back to church, running back to the Eucharist, running back to the source and summit of our faith once we can. But until then, Let's walk with Jesus. Let's recognize that Jesus is chasing after us. He hasn't left us. He will never leave us. He will never forsake us. And so as we continue this prayer of the Eucharist here, let's all ask God, open my eyes so that I can recognize you here with me, here at home, here away from the Eucharist, away from the church I so love and long for.